Nobody's texting war plans.
I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now, whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
If you think you're going to force the President of the United States to fire anybody, you've got another thing coming. We are standing behind our entire national security team.
I think it's all a witch hunt, that's all. I think it's a witch hunt.
As you just heard, Trump administration officials, even Donald Trump himself, they're all trying to downplay the significance of that Signal chat leak. And my panel is here to talk about that. And a big welcome to a new member of the State of the Union panel. Chris Marr, you were the spokesperson at the Pentagon, the chief spokesperson at the Pentagon during the last administration. So I will start with you. I know Democrats are trying, but so far there doesn't seem to be a dog that's hunting on the pushback in a real aggressive way, except for the notion of the Inspector General at the Pentagon, where you used to work, looking into it, which James Lankford endorsed on the show earlier.
Yeah, so here's the fundamental issue with what you just heard from the Trump administration. They're losing the trust of the troops, who should be the main focus in all of this. The business of the Department of Defense is very dangerous. Every single day, they're dealing with life and death issues. It's risky and it's dangerous. And so you need our leadership, our most senior leadership at the Pentagon, our most senior leadership in the United States government, to take steps to mitigate that risk, to take steps to keep our troops safe. Pete Hegseth, he did the opposite. He put classified, sensitive material about an operation hours before that operation took place into an unclassified setting, which is one of the biggest no-nos at the Department of Defense. If somebody like me did that, I'd be out on the sidewalk. And so I think you need to really take a look at, the actions that they took and the result of it.
Scott?
Well, I think it's possible for two things to be true. One, it's possible to say this was a mistake, and it's a teachable moment, and I have no doubt they won't do it again. And it's also possible to look at, if you're trying to assess what should we do about it. I hear Democrats arguing, well, we should fire Pete Hegseth, we should fire the National Security Advisor. The bar for firing people like this is really high from the last administration, when after the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was a disaster, people died, no accountability was meted out. After the drone strike that vaporized those poor kids and that family, no accountability. After the Secretary of Defense went AWOL, no accountability. So if you're arguing today that we should get rid of Pete Hegseth over a small mistake regarding communications, even while he was expertly executing this military operation against the Houthi rebels, which also the Biden administration didn't take up, I don't have a lot of time for that argument today, and neither does most Republicans.
The problem here is that Pete Hegseth has taken no accountability. He's bashed the reporter. He's called it a hoax. He's done everything but say, hey, I made a mistake by putting this information in the Signal chat. You mentioned Secretary Austin. He stood at the podium for an hour and took accountability. He asked for a 30-day review of the hospitalization. He asked for an inspector general.
Did a single Democrat ask for his resignation?
Scott, if I may.
Did a single Democrat,
Scott,
not one?
I am so glad to hear you say that this was a mistake.
Yeah.
We have not heard a single member of the Trump administration say that this was a mistake.
Trump
we
did.
need leadership.
Trump did.
We need leaders who step up, who own their mistakes,
Trump
and put
did.
out clear plans, because what I'm hearing on the ground from actual constituents is that this is a sign of the carelessness of this administration, who can't even protect national security details. What about our personal details, our tax numbers?
I want to bring in Shermichael and show our viewers some of the new polling that I teased earlier. This is from CBS out this morning. Using Signal to discuss military plans was not appropriate. Overall, 76% agree with that. Mostly Democrats, 91% of Democrats, 80% of independents, and even a majority of Republicans.
Look, I'm not surprised, but I want to just go back down memory lane. I mean, Scott mentioned Afghanistan and how much of a debacle it was, but let's remind the viewers of the specifics of Afghanistan. 13 service members died. It was the deadliest attack, a single deadliest attack since 2011. A significant number of our troops were gravely wounded. And let's not forget those Gold Star families. They begged for accountability. Even many of them testified before Congress. Fire someone, demote someone. the administration did absolutely nothing. And even when Jake Sullivan told President Biden, I'm willing to resign, the president wouldn't accept the resignation. And so when Scott, when I, and other Republicans say we don't want to hear anything from Democrats, they have no moral standing to talk to Republicans about what we should do when they did absolutely nothing. When those Gold Star families, even to this day, Dana, still are begging for some type of answers for why the administration didn't protect their sons and daughters, and they want to lecture us
Chris,
on what we
what do you
did
say to
wrong.
that?
Give me a break.
Look, there's no doubt that what happened at Abbey Gate was a tragedy, just like every loss of life over the last 20 years of the Afghanistan war. We can argue the merits of why we got into the war in Afghanistan. We can argue the merits of how we got out of the war in Afghanistan. But it's up to the Secretary of Defense in those moments to do everything he can to mitigate the risk that our troops face. We did that at Abbey Gate. It was a tremendously chaotic, difficult circumstance that was extremely dangerous for those men and women.
I want to get Mallory in.
It is wild to me that we would rather live in the past and point blame at Democrats who are no longer in the White House. They are not the leaders in power right now. People want to know right now, what is this administration going to do? What is J.D. Vance going to do? Who in that Signal chat is going to step forward, say this was a mistake, you should not use apps that any of us can download on our phone to share sensitive information.
But you know why this is important from an argumentative perspective? Because Democrats are positioning themselves as being the authority.
Let's not
on
talk about
what went
Democrats
wrong.
versus
You
Republicans.
have
Hold
no
on.
ground to stand on
Hold
to
on.
lecture us about what's going wrong
why
here
are we
when you guys had a
dividing? Hold on.
catastrophic
Wait,
issue
wait, wait.
just
Let-
4 years ago.
One at a time.
Why are you so insistent on dividing this country? It is
so
not
now
about
I'm insistent on
Democrats
dividing the
versus
country?
Republicans. It is about people that I am hearing from every single day. People who are asking me, is it safe for me to file my taxes? Because if this is what they are going to do with sensitive military information, are they going to keep my social
people are really
gotta-
worried
you
about-
gotta-
And,
They
and,
are.
and
Yes.
think
You
of
gotta-
the F-18 pilot who is going to be going on the next operation.
we gotta sneak
Is he
in a
gonna
quick
have
break.
confidence in the
We
administration?
got to sneak in a quick break. You mentioned Democrat versus Republican. That's exactly what's happening this week because there is an election coming up. Believe it or not, it is an election day on Tuesday. Once again, we have two special elections coming up in Florida for important House seats and then a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin that has garnered a lot of attention and millions of dollars. My panel is back, and I just want to give a shout out to our panelist, Mallory McMurrow, who is not only the majority whip of the Michigan State Senate, she is the author of this new book, Hate Won't Win, where you talk about a lot of things, but also, most importantly, you try to give a roadmap to Democratic voters and leaders about how to get back from the political wilderness on a national level. How would you incorporate some of what you have in here into what you're looking at on Tuesday?
So part of what I detail in the book is how Republicans built power not just in one election, but over many decades, frankly, starting in state legislatures and building up to a point where during Barack Obama's presidency, Democrats lost more than 1,000 state legislature seats around the country. Republicans took control of 2/3 of state legislatures. Democrats love to look for the new shiny thing at the top, hoping that that is going to fix everything. Let's be very clear, this Florida election should not be as close as it is, and that should worry my Republican friends. But for every Democrat, sign up for a canvassing shift, but do not stop on Tuesday. This is going to take not just one election, but years for us to rebuild a Democratic Party that looks very different, sounds very different, and fights for people in a way that we can all be proud of.
Congrats on your book. You designed the cover too, didn't you?
I sure did. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out.
Of course, what's fun? Here's what I think about these elections, and the Republican Party has to sort of come to grips with the new reality, which is we've traded a lot of the highest propensity voters to the Democrats, but a lot of new, lower propensity voters have come in the Republican Party. What is the real world effect of this? Number one, it's great for presidential elections. Ask Donald Trump. That's how he won last November. But for off year, off cycle, special, midterm, anything not happening under a presidential election, these kinds of lower propensity voters just simply don't have a history of turning out as much. And so one of the things Republicans have to do, and I think we will win in Florida, but one thing we have to do is condition these new people in the Republican Party, hey, voting in every election is vital. Don't just turn out every 4 years. turnout whenever there's something on the ballot. That's something that I know the top strategists in the party are stressing, but it may take some time to condition these new folks to become regular voters.
And just to underscore why we're talking about these special elections, it's not just because it's a reflection and a question about Donald Trump and how he's doing, but it's the numbers, because it is so incredibly tight in the House of Representatives, so much so that the president pulled the nomination of a Republican lawmaker because he's worried about the narrow majority.
Yeah, Elise Stefanik, congrats on the book. Your analysis is absolutely spot on, and I hope your party does not listen to you in terms of what Republicans did a couple of years ago. With that said, I think we'll win Florida. I think the candidate may underperform Trump. That bothers me a little bit. This is a 30-plus R district. It should be easily winnable. Wisconsin, I think a lot of Democrats are going to make a big deal about it. It's a Democrat replacing a Democrat, $80 million. I think Elon Musk certainly has some interest there because they would not allow Tesla to sell cars in the state. They focus less actually on Republicans and a lot on Elon Musk if you look at a lot of the ads. I'm wondering how effective that strategy will be for Democrats in the next series of special election races coming up. I think that's going to tell us a lot in terms of how Republicans should prepare ourselves for the Democratic strategy going forward.
And here's the thing, you're seeing voters around the country very angry right now. They're showing up to town halls angry, and you're starting to see it electorally. 13 out of the 14 special elections that we've had since November, Democrats have overperformed Donald Trump in November. Why is that? Republicans got to be asking that question. Why are we talking about a plus 30 Trump district in Florida? It's because they're trying to cut Medicaid to provide a tax cut to billionaires like Elon Musk. It's because they're slowing down the benefits that veterans have received at the VA. They're slowing down the benefits that seniors are entitled to through Social Security. People are upset about that, and they're starting to make their voice heard at the ballot box.
Before we go, you are a state senator. There is a vacancy coming up in the United States Senate. Gary Peters is going to step down. Are you going to run for his seat?
This is a big seat. The most important thing for me is that we do everything we can to hold this seat when Republicans are not stepping up to do their job in the Senate, and I'll have some news to make on this very soon.
Whoa.
Hello.
That's really?
Sounds like you kind of made the news now.
Let's do it now.
I think
We're
you
all
just
here.
did.
Got a whole audience. I love this.